Unscripted.
Unshackled.
Uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for mature ears only.
It's Miguel Fuller.
I would show anything. I'd show my hee-hee and my hoo-hoo and my ha-ha.
Holly O'Connor.
Hey, Daddy, you want to take this to the bedroom?
And Scotty the Body.
I am officially not only the girl daddy, but I'm a hot girl daddy.
Oh, wow.
It's the Miguel and Holly Uncensored podcast.
Only from Hot 101.5, Tampa Bay's new hit music.
Well, hello and welcome to another Miguel and Holly Uncensored podcast.
Oh, happy day.
Yes, you can see this on YouTube, Miguel and Holly. Just type that in for our YouTube channel. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. It's much appreciated.
Yeah.
So we're going to just jump right into this conversation that we had on our actual on-air show. So what we do on Fridays and Mondays, we do this thing called the love test. And Holly, what is that?
So it's if you think your partner is cheating, you give us the details, and then we put said possible cheating partner to the love test. And that's just me usually sliding up into your partner's DMs to try to lure them into cheating. Like I'll provide, like I'll make it very easy for them to cheat. So then we see if they will or not. And then it kind of helps you figure out what to do next. And so on Friday's show, we spoke with a listener who was a little nervous because her boyfriend, I guess they'd been dating since January, and he mainly is friends with gay men. And she's like, that's cool. And that's never been a problem until now. But what had happened was that Tampa Pride was this past weekend. And he was like, hey, I'm going to Pride. Ooh, sorry, you can't come. It's for the boys.
Me and my gay friends.
Me
and
and
I'm
my
the only
boys.
straight guy.
I'm the only straight one. All the gays. And so she was like, I was like kind of weirded out. But then my friends are like, are you sure he's not gay? And he's like trying to take this opportunity to just get it in over Pride weekend.
Oh.
So we did the love test.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, he's not gay.
Yeah.
And I pretended to be a gay man, kind of trying to slide up and say, hey, how you doing? And he did not. He passed the love test. He didn't. So, I mean, in that particular instance, things ended well. But on Friday, when we aired, when we had the first part of this story, an M+H Fam member called up and said, hold on. I have seen these red flags before, and your caller needs to be careful.
Right. And so that's where, Megan, we talked to you on the air for a little bit, but because like most things, we are under time constraints on the show, so we can't go like in depth like we can on the podcast. And so what was your original statement on the radio? And then you followed up with an email to Holly going a little bit more into exactly what you experienced when you were with someone who was basically gay.
Right.
So I had been in a relationship with a man who eventually came out to me as being bisexual over the after saying that he wasn't for like 4 or 5 years. He initially said something really odd to me. He said, if things don't work out with us, I will just go fully gay. I never understood what that meant.
That is quite a statement.
Yeah.
It really was. And, I blew it off at the time. I didn't question him more about it. I just kind of raised my eyebrows. I just thought he was exaggerating, because of whatever the situation that we were talking about at the time.
Yeah.
And over the course of a few years, I questioned him about, certain kinds of things that he was into that would indicate to me, that maybe he, liked men as well. But at that point, it didn't bother me because, we were in a one-on-one relationship. And for me, cheating is cheating.
Right. Yes.
So, the reason why I called was because, he has certain kinds of interests. He we have gay friends. We, but it was mainly his interest.
And by the way, Megan, just so you
yeah.
know, we're on the podcast. So if you can go into all sorts of details that you want, everything's on the table. It's not like on the radio where you gotta,
tiptoe around.
Yeah, no, if you were like, ooh, girl, he was watching two men going down with each other, like, go for it.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's basically it. I mean, he had a certain affinity for gay porn.
All right.
And, just, I mean, it's a little uncomfortable and awkward for me to talk about because this was my first experience with porn, for instance, of that nature.
That's a lot.
So, it was, I didn't, it didn't bother me at all, and because I like men,
You're
so
like,
I was, into the visuals, but at the same time, it caused me to wonder because I'd never been in a relationship with a person who liked that type of porn or porn in the sense that what he was into, the level that he was into, because he watched it quite a bit.
Oh.
So, and that's another red flag.
Right.
And he was generally kinky. So
right.
being, kinky like he was and using toys and whatnot, it was very new to me. It didn't seem like, and I'm a 50-year-old woman. So, I've been married and had, boyfriends in the past.
How long ago was this, by the way, when you were on and off with this man?
We're pretty freshly broken up. So I'm for the last time,
so,
this was like 2 months ago.
Oh my gosh.
Broke up, but we broke up over the course of 7 years a few times.
Yeah.
And what I had mentioned to Holly in the follow-up email was that he, shortly after he had said that statement about going fully gay, he got a new job. He met this other man at his job, and they became fast friends right away. And they went on to do a lot of things together, spend a lot of time together. He started, going out with the boys. So he would tell me, and, obviously this other person was one of those boys. And then it evolved to him, staying out all night, but often telling me, he didn't want to drink and drive. So that kind of thing started happening. And this was, within like 2 years of the relationship. So this has been a long process of me figuring out, what he was starting to get into. But the thing that strikes me was that, I didn't have any other clues. Both of these men are very chauvinistic, very macho. They flirt with women. They, overly so, like in an exaggerated way.
Like almost what you would consider to be like a very stereotypical manly men.
Manly man. Nice.
Yes, very stereotypically, and some of the comments are that they would make, especially when they were together, were rude and, and I'm sitting right there in some instances, and I'm just like, I'm sitting right here.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I'm no psychologist or psychiatrist, so I don't know if they're overcompensating for whatever vibe was happening or growing at that point between the two of them or whatever. I don't know. But what I do know is that it came down to him, my boyfriend at the time, asking me to have him join us. in the bedroom.
Oh.
So all of a sudden, he's, met this guy at work at his new job. They're hanging out all the time. Meanwhile,
Right.
he's still looking at gay porn, in his own
Right.
time. And
Right.
then out of nowhere, he's like, hey, so Philip should join us in the bedroom. This
Exactly.
new coworker.
Yeah, the one that you all talk down about women. I want
Yes.
him to come in here.
Yes, and get up in our bedroom. So
Wow.
what did you say to that, Megan?
Well, I let it happen.
Oh.
A lot of times in
eventually-
relationships, you want to be open
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and understanding about which partner's into. So I totally
Right.
get it.
Now,
Right.
tell me, if it's too much for you to obviously we're not going to get into the intimate details because that's your story. But how was that experience for you? Was it uncomfortable? Was it okay? Did they make you feel comfortable? Were you the star of the show
Or
or
were
Well,
you
they
sort of
off
like
to
a
the
third
side.
wheel?
yeah.
I was the star of the show. So
Nice.
it wasn't, uncomfortable. We had something to drink, and it actually wasn't my first experience with that. It was my second, but
Yeah.
I was into it. I mean, the friend was an attractive guy. What did concern me though wasn't really what might happen between them, because now thinking back on it, I didn't. All of that didn't click until afterwards. You know what I mean? Why that even came up?
Yeah.
It just, it was something that happened organically. I mean, it was mentioned before, but it wasn't something planned. So,
like the actual threesome, basically.
right.
So it was just sort
wasn't-
of y'all were hanging out, and then just drinks are happening, and then it just all of a sudden organically happened. It wasn't like y'all said, "All right, Friday at 8:00, this is going down."
Everyone meet in this one spot.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, so when that initially happened, because we had been drinking, in my mind, I really only wanted to be with my boyfriend, but I did, want to please him. So, even though it wasn't planned, in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, I don't know how we're going to feel about this afterwards. I don't know, if he's going to think, because you read things and you see things, and people, sometimes have problems afterwards when
It opens the door up.
experiment.
Yeah.
Right.
Especially if you're not on the same page.
So it didn't have that effect at all. Afterwards, the next day, I expressed how I felt a little kind of weirded out a little bit, and he was very nonchalant about it. He was like, well, sex is sex. That's all it is. You don't need to worry. You don't need to feel weird about anything.
But did that statement bother you? Because if sex is sex, doesn't that kind of leave the door open for sex with other people?
Exactly. It didn't at the time, but as things evolved in the relationship, it did make me wonder, to get drunk and he wouldn't come home sometimes and say he was too drunk to drive. And, the other man had multiple girlfriends over the course of our relationship. So I had no idea whether or not they were having sex is sex without me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and which, actually, I don't know if they ever had any other, menage a trois or anything like that. But I do know, because he told me, that they did have intimate relationships with each other,
Oh.
which surprised me.
When did he tell you that?
Probably about a year ago. So this is the tail end of our relationship. Obviously, the last year, since we just broke up for the last time 2 months ago, that he told me that. And I mean, he went into, and I questioned him because I was like, well, how does that happen? You know what I mean? Because
that's a big commitment. I mean, it's like, and there's almost like different levels of sexual things. Like there's, not full on sexual relations.
I mean, if it's just hands
or other
mouths.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like that's sort of a line in some people's minds where it's like, this is fooling around.
Right.
You get to sex. There's, and like your former boyfriend used to say, sex is sex, but that's kind of a big deal.
It's very intimate.
It's intimate.
Right.
Yes.
And especially.
Right. Well, he was saying, he said that, I mean, he explained exactly how it went down. And it shocked me because not the act, but that he could just be in a situation where they're hanging out, drinking beers, and how he put it, which was just made my eyes bug out. The one guy just was like, well, hey, I'm horny. And then, they just go to town. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? That's, all this time I've been worried that could be cheating with another woman, or you're going out finding strange people on the internet or whatever it is, because he was pretty shady. That my hesitation about why you were always spending this time with this one person was right. You were cheating, essentially, with this guy, and he told me that was not cheating, which again blew my mind, because if you are having intimate relationship with someone,
that's what's blowing my mind. And what I loved, and because your email was lengthy, and I'm not going to lie to you, Megan, sometimes when I get a very lengthy email, I'm like, hold on, here we go, because you don't know what it's going to be about.
Right.
I sat in my daughter's car line. And I was just like, what? Like, she went into so many details. And what I thought was so interesting is this point that we're getting to, which is he didn't consider that cheating.
Right.
Even though clearly, I think as a whole, as a society, we can all say if you're having sex with someone else, unless it has been clearly established that that's okay in that relationship, that's cheating.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you made, I thought, a really great point about society and where we're at with all things LGBTQ. And more important than that, the sliding scale, and more so the spectrum of sexuality, and how, let me be delicate. It's probably been a lot of women who have been hurt in a way by a man who is somewhere on this spectrum, but either refuses to admit it, doesn't believe it, has been told by society it's not right. And there are people getting hurt in this process. And I say it can happen in any capacity, like, whatever gender. But I would say probably typically, maybe painting with a broad brush, a lot of women who think that they're signing up for a straight man are getting hurt in the process because this man, A, doesn't know himself, B, is not willing to be upfront about who he really is. And that's where you got caught, Megan.
And it really is. It really is. Because, after he told me he was bisexual, because, and this took a lot of coaxing him to, admit. And, afterwards I was like, well, don't you feel better about that? Because I don't know that whether or not he had come out to any of his other friends. And I don't even know if you call it coming out. It's just what you are, I then, did start to kind of question and wonder whether or not, I had to worry about him, finding not only, if he was looking at men or if he was looking at women. It definitely complicated things, but for sure, nobody at his job knows this. None of his people that he interacts with socially from his job or in his friend circle that I know of. So
now, Megan, what was the final straw for the relationship? What was this thing that happened that made you finally go, you know what? I'm done. I got to walk away.
Well, ironically, he's the one that walked away.
What happened?
Well, so the first, I sort of have to back it up just slightly. The first time we broke up, it was a situation to where he was called away. We had something to do at the house on a Sunday, and or maybe it was a Saturday, and he was called away for his job to help, which he would do often. Both of the guys worked the same job, and often the one would call the other, and that would be the excuse he would give me. Oh, he's got to go pitch in with such and such and such a job. So we had gotten into an argument because we had something specific that needed to be done before the end of the weekend, and he was like, "I've got to go," and so he left. And in his leaving, he just never came back. He didn't talk to me. He didn't call me for like 3 weeks until I finally called him. And by that point, he had been shacking up with some woman.
What
the hell?
What the
heck?
Goodness.
I can't make this up. I mean,
why did you take him back after that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've done some reading on, trauma bonding and, different various ways people are, just.
Absolutely. Say no more. Say no more. It makes sense. It's very difficult to leave sometimes, especially once you have tried to get into the mind of someone and like you think you understand where they're coming from, but even you don't know maybe, because it's one thing if he had finally opened up and been like, here's all of me, take it or leave it. And you're like, okay, I can make a education-based decision now. But he had never truly opened up.
No, he never showed you who he was, it sounds like.
No, he really didn't. I mean, he kind of showed me who he was. I mean, he walked away. He left all of his things at the house because we lived together at that point. We didn't begin living together. This was like 2 years in. So he walks away. He's missing in action for three weeks. I call. He's shacked up with this woman in her trailer. Like 3 months into it, a tree falls on it, crushes it. So then they move together somewhere else. And all the while, I mean, we were broken up for like an entire year. He would call periodically, or, he would want to come get his stuff in drips and drabs, that kind of thing. So it wasn't like it was total non-contact, but we weren't hanging out together or seeing each other or interacting with one another for about a year.
My goodness.
So what ended up happening was, with that situation, that particular breakup, was that she kept sending him to jail for like domestic violence stuff. Burning all his stuff, this is Jerry Springer type stuff. I'm a professional woman, and it's all indirect casting, a lot of the drama part of it, so he ended up not having a place to go. He moved into a different place, and then she was out of the picture. He ended up putting her in jail. She went to jail for stealing his stuff, or something happened like that. And so over the course of the next year, we didn't live together, but, the relationship began to develop again.
Now, Megan.
Yeah.
I am curious about where you are emotionally with it now, because that is a lot of stuff that you have been put through, have experienced, have had it, you can't walk away from that unscathed.
Right.
Where are you now with all of that?
I'm not exactly sure. That's why I've been really happy to get more information about counseling and whatnot. So I am going to pursue, talking to somebody, because I haven't, you all are the only people I've told so far.
Well,
I don't have close friends that would even believe me.
Yeah.
They would be like, if I told them 1/10 of what actually happened over the course of 7 years, they would think that, that not that something was wrong with him, but more that something was wrong with me.
But there's not. There may be some trauma bonding, like you said. There is this sort of thing. There's this sort of undying hope that maybe this person is gonna change at the 11th hour, and they can say very persuasive things, but that's exactly what they are. They're persuasive things. Otherwise, the change would have happened and you would have seen it already. The saying that you can say anything you want unless you see, has he gone to therapy? Has he stopped drinking and doing drugs if he does drugs? Does he stay out of trouble with the law? Like, you would have seen these changes if he was going to change. So that's why I'm a little bit concerned that he's still in your life in some capacity.
He isn't.
Good.
I haven't. It's been completely total non-contact for these last 2 months. Unlike the other 2 times, because the first time was the first time that we broke up. Unlike the other times, he was still in my social media. He's deleted and blocked and whatever else from the social media. The only reason I haven't blocked him on the telephone is because he does have things at my house. Not a lot. Not like the first year.
Get rid of it.
That we broke up.
Get rid of it. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
If he doesn't need it now, he's never going to need it.
No. Or if you want to just, get a third party to contact him and like give them his stuff.
Yeah, put it
so
in a box and
can,
let them pick it up at the driveway and go drop it off his house.
Exactly.
No contact is best.
Yes.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it went this far. Like, I'm over here with this message of like, there like the greater message, and you're like, well, I just got out of this 2 months ago. Woo, girl.
Jeez. So,
It's a lot.
A lot.
so what do you say to someone who, now this may be a little hard because
You're still in it.
You're still in it. And we thought that you were a little further removed from it. But if possible, if someone is listening to this and they're like, wow, I think that my boothang, my boyfriend, fiance, husband may be gay by some of the things that he said, what would you have done differently in this situation with him when this all first started?
That's a really tough question, because I don't know that I would have done anything differently. Because for me, the issue isn't his being bisexual, because I don't believe that he's full on gay. Because he does like women, and he has been married. He's got 5 children, so he. I think I would have to think back to the first long-term relationship I had, because this new guy. Well, he's not a new guy, but my most recent ex, is the third long-term relationship I've had. The first long-term relationship I had, the man did come out as gay, and is living his best life, open with a partner and everything. The one red flag in that situation was his lack of wanting to be intimate with me.
Right.
And this is something that I discussed with another friend of mine. This was way back when I was in college. And when I explained that situation to her, she immediately was like, well, he's gay. And I was like, oh, well, how can you be so sure? And what she said was that her ex-husband was the same way, and he turned out to be gay. But at that, their relationship broke up because he came out. Now Now, the relationship I had in college, I don't know that he knew, and I certainly feel that he was in conflict with whatever his own sexuality at the time. We had gay roommates. We would spend a lot of time at the gay clubs, and everything was great. We were, it was kind of like the situation from the
love
love
test.
test person. He surrounded himself with a lot of people who were out, and I didn't see anything wrong with that. I mean, I it's perfectly fine and natural for in the way that my perception. So I was just a lot of times a tag along. So that would be the one thing I would say as far as a red flag would be if there was some kind of lacking in the bedroom, or if you didn't feel like they were into it, because that definitely was an issue. Now, with this last ex, that was not an issue. He was highly oversexed. So.
Wow. This has been really fascinating to hear this, how it all transpired. And I'm wondering, as our society becomes more open and, you have someone like a Scott who, you live with 3 gay guys, Scott, and you're very comfortable going with us to a gay club and being around it, where's that line for, women if they're dating a guy? Because obviously we're doing all this not to, as a gay man, we're not trying to make anybody feel bad, but it's like you as a human being have to be honest with yourself.
I think that's what it comes down to.
Yes, before you enter into a relationship with someone and you're trying to figure yourself out, and then now you're taking this person down this path with you, and they may not want to go down that path and they don't have a choice. Whereas you have to sort of figure out your stuff before you enter into a relationship, so you don't cause pain and heartache with the other person who's just like, I just want you to love me and I want to love you, but you don't know who you are.
Right.
And so you've got to take the time to figure that out first before you can enter into a relationship. Well, Megan, I'm so sad that you had to go through that, but hopefully as you're healing, you can take away some lessons about yourself and, how to, live the best life for you after going through something so tough for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
And good luck on your therapy journey.
Yes.
Because it really will help start to put some of the pieces back together.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining
Absolutely.
us.
Thank you, Megan. You have a great day, okay?
You too. Bye-bye.
Whew.
Good Lord.
That is just insane. But also, and I should have asked her what's the age range for this guy? But unfortunately, that is what we are seeing because the way our society was, that like she said from the very beginning, him and this coworker would bash women and, display the toxic masculinity because they were trying to overcompensate and cover up and
need to be.
Right. And that's what we always say in the gay world is that the person that's screaming the loudest about how much they hate gays and how gays are gross usually ends up being the one that's being the creeper in the bathroom trying to toe tap and hook up with somebody on the DL.
Yeah.
And then they end up hurting their family, their children, and embarrassing all of them because they've never been honest with themselves.
And I understand, I don't understand. I'm not a gay man who has ever had to think about coming out, so I don't understand. But what I do know is it must be very, very difficult to have that conversation with yourself for yourself.
Right.
But how much better would it be for yourself to have it before you take yourself down and then all those other people around you? The weight, it makes me sad for the person and the family.
Oh, absolutely. And I've seen that happen where you have guys that come out later on in life, and you just feel, because it's a shock. Which, let's say you're in the closet and you are in that space where you felt like it wasn't comfortable.
Yeah.
There are resources for you. So like, there is someone that I dated, some years ago, that was sort of in the closet at the time. And I always, I have a rule that I would never date in the closet guys, because they've got to figure out their stuff before they can date.
Yeah, like you
Yeah. Oh,
just
that's
said.
Right.
exactly right. You can't. How are you going to be with someone and be a supportive partner if you have you have no idea who you are?
Right.
Yep.
And this person was that way. Like, they were in the closet from everyone. And they sort of moved the relationship along a lot faster than I normally would have. And I sort of broke all my rules, and I was like, all right, cool. Well, let's be in a relationship. And then literally 2 weeks later, they were like, this is a little bit much for me. And so now I see them on social media. They are married, they have a kid. And some of the stuff that we did, and some of the stuff that he would say when he was drunk, I honestly full-heartedly believe this man will come out later on in life.
You don't
will.
think he is bisexual, and
No.
maybe he just, because let's talk about bisexuality for a minute. Like,
Right.
I could be, if I'm bisexual, I am fully also attracted to women, but maybe I happen to fall in love with the perfect man for me, and I'm with a man.
Right.
Although I'm still bisexual.
Right.
I've chosen and I'm committed to this man because I love him.
Absolutely. And I would rather talk to a bisexual person, because, as a gay man, if we're on the scale, the Kinsey scale of sexuality, like, girl, I'm pretty much like on RuPaul's side. Like, there's nothing about me that is ever straight that will be straight. I'm not straight at all. Okay.
Okay.
I'm very much on that side of the
You gay,
Kinsey
you gay,
scale.
you gay.
I'm gay, 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 gay.
Gotcha.
So I think that just because of the intimate moments that we shared, that, like, yes, is it possible? I do believe that he loves his wife. He obviously loves his kid. But I do think that there are just some things that you get as a gay man that you can't get in a relationship with a woman.
And you think, okay, let me try to make this straight in my head. Not straight.
Straight. Ha. Ha.
Let me make this clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you think that he is gay, not bisexual.
Yes.
And in the long run, it's not going to work out with this woman, because if he were bisexual, maybe it would.
Right.
But as a gay man, there are certain things that you only feel satisfied by in a gay relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And homegirl ain't cutting it.
No.
And I'm telling you what, that makes me really sorrowful for her.
Yes. Because she doesn't know. I mean, I don't know, because him and I don't talk. So I don't know how much she knows. But
my guess is not a whole lot.
No.
If he was so closeted with you.
And that was the thing, is that he comes from a very religious, conservative background. And so much of his identity was shaped around what people thought of him from the high school he went to, from his workplace, from his church members. And I'm like, that's cool, but like, they can't live life for you.
Exactly.
Like, you've got to live it for yourself. And that was one of the things. Well, now granted, this was almost 10 years ago that this situation went down. And at the time, I was really pissed, because I was hurt.
Yeah.
But then I was really embarrassed, because I'd gotten on the radio at the time and I was like, I'm in this relationship. Like, he's not really open. I sort of broke my rules. And I was just excited because I hadn't been in a relationship in a long time.
Yeah.
And I took a chance. And then literally 2 weeks later, to like then have to come back on our show at the time and be like, well, that was a short stint around the world.
That's
and
what I'm saying.
I was horribly embarrassed by it. And then I like cussed him out a little bit. And I'm not usually one to do that.
I'd be upset.
But I was just very upset. And so then, like, maybe a month or two later, I messaged him and I said, hey, listen, I'm sorry that, I was responded on not like I would normally, but you really took me by surprise. I hope that you heal yourself and you understand who you are before you get into another relationship, whether it be a man or a woman. Understand yourself so you don't send them through this pain.
Yeah.
And this pain for me, it was mostly embarrassment because it was only 2 weeks. So we didn't have a lot of time to really form an attachment or, really intimate thing. But like if you enter into another relationship and you're with that person for a long time and they think that you're one way and then there's this whole other side of you that's different, that's not fair to the other person.
It's not fair. And it really, that can crack a person's foundation because you find yourself not, it's like when you're in the ocean and there's an undertow and you can't touch the bottom and you're not sure which way the top is. You're like, I'm sorry, is my life a lie?
Yeah.
How do I even believe anything that happened in the course of this relationship? You feel like, how do you even trust again after that ever?
Right.
So it's just so complex, the issue.
I remember back in the mid 2000s, that was a big thing that like Oprah talked about, and there were news reports about men on the DL. And I think I have a book somewhere from back in the day that this black guy went on Oprah and was talking about men on the DL, and it was like this explosion in the black world because people were like, what?
Yeah.
This is happening?
There's still a little stigma about being on the DL in the black community.
Absolutely. And I mean, wasn't there another message we got, Holly, where someone said that like we would be surprised by the amount of straight guys that are married that are on the apps looking for other guys.
Yes.
On the DL.
I remember that. And I don't know where I read this because obviously everything blurs together. I read somewhere, where was it? Somebody that was like some man who's like a sex operator, like a phone operator, or like, something in that realm.
Yeah.
That said the same thing. You would not believe how many of my clients are men that need this escape from their marriage to women.
Wow.
Scott, you got an itch?
No, I don't. No.
Have you met any guys in your life that you think would sort of fit this mold, that maybe would have a secret life that they're not living in their truth?
Oh, I've had friends now recently that have identified their truth in their later years. They lived a complete different thought process, and eventually it's like all of a sudden it's like, wait, what about this? What about this? And now it's like, oh my gosh, completely, out and living their truth. And it's kind of cool to see because we met as adults, literally out and open. Like I remember, there's been people, not too many details to get specifically, but been in groups where it's like, it's a pretty masculine group. There's definitely a toxic environment, and they just weren't able to live their truth. And then you see after, time goes by, haven't seen this person in a long time, and they're fully out. And it's like, thank God. Like, I mean, I think some of us did, like closer friends definitely paid attention and were like completely okay with it. And they were just in fear of being who they really are and saying what they really wanted to say and believing what they wanted to believe. And now you see them doing it, and it's like, that's cool. Like, you seem happier that way. You seem because you are living your truth. And I have really close friends that have like, they were even fearful to bring it up with our friend group where, they lived one way. I guess they just didn't realize their truth. And as it slowly came, I remember the conversations like, guys, like, I'm actually like this. And we're like, dude, no, like, high five, man. Like, thank God. That's awesome. And but they were still in fear of even to bring it up to like their closest friend group. So that part just sucks because it's just, I wish, I hope one day that it becomes an easier, reality check to be like, oh, once you come across your own truth or learn yourself to, your fullest, that you're able to just make that your new life, make that the life that you want to live. Because I get it. I get right now because I'm sure there's friends that leave that situation that are like, wait, I thought you were somebody else. I can't be part of this friend group for whatever reason. That'd be ridiculous. But I'm sure it does happen. And that's why, I think that's why one of my friends even thought that to begin with. Like, you guys still want to be our friend? I'm like, yes, duh. Like, not even a question about it. But
I think as time goes on, there will always have an issue with it, because of religious reasons and, just, super people on that side and the way they think. But I think the more that we can normalize it, and so there doesn't have to be this big coming out thing. Like, I wish that I could have been my authentic self growing up, and I could have had boyfriends in middle school and high school and learned how to date and,
Yeah.
learned about myself. So I wouldn't have had to sort of play catch up emotionally. Because so many of my gay friends, that's why we have issues in our 20s dating. And we have that sort of Peter Pan syndrome because we're emotionally stuck at age 12 and 14. So when all of our friends are going on dates and going through those awkward phases of learning how to talk to the other sex and how to date and how to be in a relationship, we're just sort of always the fun friend, or the person that's just single. And then when we get to our 20s, we're like, oh wait, how do you do this? How did we didn't learn
I
back then?
understand that. I didn't have any dates in high school. And it can really set you back because then you're just emulating what you think
Right.
like movies, TV show
Mhm.
you, and then you end up with a lot of wrong relationships because it's very superficial.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a rough time.
Do you think it's helping now though? Because I notice a lot of the shows I watch, like there will be like gay relationships that form throughout the season. I've noticed like not necessarily me, but I notice if like other people watch it, like, it slowly becomes a more of like, okay.
Representation matters.
Yeah. Instead of like, I think at the first, like I remember like way back, like I could see either friends or maybe family members, like if like two guys kissed or something, it'd be like, whoa. And now it's cool because you see like that same scene could happen. And I've noticed people in my life be like, it's like second nature now. And so I'm seeing that representation is like, it is having a little bit of an effect on people I've seen in my circle in those realms. And I'm also seeing it in just a lot more TV shows that I watch. And it's cool because it doesn't even become a second thought anymore. Like,
Right.
oh, a relationship instead of like, oh, a gay relationship. Now it's just
Right.
like, okay, that's another, character development going on right here. All right,
Yeah,
let's see
I
where
mean,
this goes.
It's a slow process. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, and just look at our morning show, like I'm a black gay man that had my white fiance propose to me on the radio.
Yeah.
And I was just having a conversation with a radio friend, and I'm drawing a blank on who it was recently, but we were talking about how it is insane that, think about what is this, 2021?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Let's go back to like 98 in Tampa radio.
Oh.
This would have never happened. Never.
Could you imagine?
No,
Just
you
Tampa
can't.
specifically, I'm
Right.
talking.
Right. No.
No, and also no.
Right. And so when I was at Tampa Pride this weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the things that I hear from, my community is I just enjoy hearing a story that I can understand.
Yeah.
And especially after the proposal, when, I had pretty much before I met Abe, but was like, I'm going to be single for the rest of my life. I cannot tell you the number of gay men and women that slid up in my DMs and said, you literally have given me hope in life because I am right smack dab where you were.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so just hearing that, and like I have other radio people across the country that will call me and say, hey, how do I like be gay, not be gay, but like, how do I be open? And I'm
Yeah.
like, like when we do a topic, like coming up in the radio world, when we worked with Kramer back in the day, and we would do, what's the biggest fight? What's the dumbest fight you got into with your in your relationship? And it would always be straight people. It would be the guy or the girl calling in, and it would never be a gay person calling in because they just didn't.
Right.
And so now we do it, or like Blown Off or the Love Test, and you have representation, and people see that it's just like everybody else. There's no difference. And so I feel like all of those things on TV shows, on the radio, showing that it's just like everybody else.
It's normalizing everything.
Absolutely. So someone like Holly's daughter, Maya, when she gets to middle school or high school and she starts to, talk to guys or whatever, and maybe her best friend will be a boy and he's talking to other guys, or a girl and she talks to girl, or whatever the case may be, it's just normal because that's what they've been around. That's what they've seen.
Yeah. Maya, by the way, as a quick side tangent, was trying to like see how many gay people she knew. And she was like getting upset that there weren't like a whole lot because there's you and Abe, obviously, but she doesn't know all your friends. But then I have, we have a family member of a person who is married to a woman. She's married to a woman. So, you know, I'm like, well, you got that. There we go. So she's just like looking. She's looking for it. And I'm like, oh, don't worry. You're going to have a lot of friends.
Be like, listen, as you get to school, you get to middle school, don't worry, because all those little gay kids, they're percolating now. Just like when I was that age, when you start to like realize.
Well,
and
you
you're like,
do. She's 7 and she gets crushes on people.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know why anybody thinks it's not the same.
Oh, it is.
For gay kids. It's just that there's this, and hopefully, like we've been talking about, slowly taking away the stigma of that, it becomes more normal.
Absolutely. Because I remember when I was that age, when we lived in Denver, I loved Blake. I loved Fabian. But like, I didn't understand. And there was obviously at that age, nothing like sexual.
Right.
It was just like, I wanted to be around them.
Yeah.
And when Fabian moved away, I still am like, I just wonder, where is he now? And I have such a like fuzzy mental picture of who he was.
Yeah.
But like, I felt that, but I understood at the time, I couldn't tell anybody.
Yes.
I understood that I couldn't say out loud and vocalize, even though no one at that point had said,
don't do it.
Don't do it. You just
but
knew.
you don't see it.
Right.
So you're like, well, if I don't see it anywhere.
We always talk about guys and girls together.
This must be bad. And I mean, it doesn't help that you've got all the Disney princesses that are trying to find their knight in shining armor. Although I give Disney a lot of credit for doing like the Frozen storyline and Moana, where it's strong female representation without the need for a man.
Right.
So I love that. But up until then, it's just been like, this is what, especially as me, as a little girl, this is what little girls watch. Here's what your goals are. Hashtag goals.
You find a man to save you.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's slowly but surely we're turning the page.
Nice.
Scott, what's your social media?
At Scott Tavlin, SCOTTTAVLIN.
Holly.
Don't like that.
Hi.
Radio Holly on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram.
Mine is Miguel Fuller, MIGUELFULLER on all the social networks. Make sure to leave us a rating, a 5-star rating, please, and a review. It's greatly appreciated. Yes. And thank you for being a part of the Platypus Posse. If you want some Miguel and Holly stickers, just shoot me an email, Miguel@hot1015tampabay.com. Bye.
Catch up with the previous episodes of the Miguel and Holly Uncensored podcast from Hot 101.5.
Just hit up the Hot 101.5 app, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
Search Miguel and Holly Uncensored.